Hello, everybody. This is Coastal Collective coming to you to talk about real shit that goes on in the creative industry. My name is Terry Hofford. I'm a body image educator, photographer, and author. And we have Aroha and Kayla and Jessica. So if y'all want to just like introduce yourselves for those that don't know who you are and kind of, what you're all about. Aroha.
I'll start. So, hi everybody, I'm Aroha. I'm a boudoir photographer based in London, Ontario, Canada. I've been doing this for a very long time now. So, I've recently, Terry and I went on our road trip. So you might have seen me go across Canada to both of us ending up at Jessica's in BC. So, that was a fun trip. But that's pretty much me, who I am, running a studio here in London, as well as a rental business where photographers come in and rent out my studio spaces. So it's busy, but I'm glad to be here with the rest of the Coastal crew so that we can help y'all get down to the nitty gritty of what it's like being a creative entrepreneur. So welcome.
Awesome. And Kayla?
My name's Kayla. I'm a photographer, a studio manager, and admin assistant. I'm based in Toronto. I do all the things.
So she keeps the things running and sends us on adventures.
Yes, I do.
Beautiful. And Jessica.
Hi, Jessica Ray. I'm in beautiful British Columbia, recently relocated from the Vancouver area up to the beautiful Shuswap and Salmon Arm, and I have been an intimate portrait photographer for well over a decade. I'm happy to be here.
Amazing. So what we're talking about today, we figured we would kick it off talking about kind of new beginnings or starting again, since I don't want to say we're through the pandemic because we're still in it a little bit, but the world has decided to move on. So society has decided to move on. And what we've been noticing collectively across the board, whether it be with photographers or just a lot of small businesses in general, is this idea that it feels like we have to build everything back up, but we're trying to do it in a world that is different than it once was. And so even though we have been in the industry for a long time, we're all experiencing new beginnings. Jessica has moved to a new location, has a new studio. I've stopped taking clients, so I'm moving in a different direction for my creative business. And we just noticed that there's a lot of people having slow bookings. They might have inquiries, but not a lot of people are actually booking. So we want to talk about that and the realness that comes with it and how to hopefully not let it take a toll on your value as a human being. So Aroha, let's start with you. So how long have you been running your photography business?
So I started into the world of boudoir and intimate portraiture when I arrived in Canada in 2011. So what's that, 12 years now? And when I initially got into it, it was a very different scene. And especially for me coming from Australia, because boudoir hadn't actually hit Australian shores like it is now. So when I came across and I heard about this amazing thing, like, having your clients feel empowered and doing all the amazing things with them, I was like, I need to do this. Like, this is the direction that I want to go in. Before that, I was a portrait and wedding photographer. So it was a bit of a fairly decent jump, like most of you have started somewhere probably and then come across to boudoir photography. So that shift was in itself, the transition, that was a little difficult because I knew nothing about boudoir photography. So I had to get myself some training and, mentoring under a couple of amazing photographers. And then I started my business. So it grew and grew and grew. And then myself and Jessica, we met up several years into our photography journey and wanted to bring education to our community, and that's why we started Coastal Collective. So it has been a really interesting journey to go from completely new to the industry in that regard, and then into the realm of providing an education platform for people. But it's been super exciting at the same time. But then obviously the pandemic hit, and that took a toll across the board for everybody, you know. Bookings dropped off, people's mindset shifted a little bit. I saw everyone go from, okay, all our studios are shut down, to slowly progressing to them being able to be reopened again, which was amazing. But it also took a toll. After the pandemic, for me, it was like I had to start all over again, right back down to bare bones basics. And it was hard, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't think I was gonna make it. And especially because I have a studio rental business too. So with all the photographers in my area being shut down, I didn't have any rental bookings. So there's two key streams of income that I no longer had. And it was really hard to just keep going and saying to myself, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. And then when the doors opened up again, there was this real flurry of people wanting to come in and book, and because they'd been shut up in their homes for so long, and it was great. Business was going really well. And then there was this drop off. And I think a lot of folks are feeling that right now as well, is with the economic climate the way it is, the way that things are going in the world in general, scary times, you know. And I feel it a lot. So yeah, I'm not sure if any of you folks are feeling the same way. Jess?
I was just going to ask, based on that, like, it sounds like, and Kayla or Jessica, feel free to weigh in on this too. A lot of people didn't actually process the trauma that was the pandemic. I just recently watched The Morning Show. I don't know if you watched that show with Jennifer Aniston, and anyways, it's a really good show, but they did it as if they were going through the pandemic, like they're a news agency going through the pandemic while it's happening. And I bawled because I was like, oh, like that was the first time I actually cried about the pandemic, because it made it very real. And I was like, I don't think we've actually processed what happened to us, like the world collectively. And so I think right now we're all in that freeze state of like, almost like, I don't know, what does it matter kind of thing, like a depression. So Jessica, what about for you? How, like, because you obviously also moved like within the last little bit here, how did that impact you?
It's funny that you mentioned about not processing it and kind of delayed processing, because I was just having a conversation with my oldest son, who moved back in with us last night, and he's moved away out of his school district, so he's finishing his grade 12 year, doing online school, which is reminiscent of the pandemic. So he had some triggers with that, and then he actually shared with me about how the fact that when it was online school and how he was struggling, and how he doesn't feel like, he feels like he's missed a large chunk of his education. And then it's been interesting, and that actually gave me pause to really consider, wait, there are so many more impacts to all of us that I, like you say, kind of a blissful ignorance, if you will, kind of don't want to acknowledge it. Like, it's fine, everything's fine. And I'm realizing that it's not fine, and that there are going to be long-term struggles and trauma to deal with from this. And I'm seeing it in the everyday life of my family right now. Like Aroha, it was kind of scary at first. I went 3 months with, no booking when we were kind of in total lockdown. And when the doors opened, I was apprehensive and I wasn't sure what to expect. But as Aroha said, all of a sudden it was like a new boom almost, because people had been saving up for milestone birthday trips or anniversaries and stuff like that. So all of a sudden they couldn't travel, and they had this extra money sitting around that they were saving up for something special. And all of a sudden they were investing in themselves with portrait experiences. And so that was great. So for a while there was this nice kind of bounce back that it almost felt too good to be true. And then society, like you said, just kind of decided, we're done. We're back to normal. travel has resumed, everything has resumed, but it's not normal. It's a new normal for sure. We're looking at record high grocery prices. The pricing of, just day-to-day living has gone through the roof. So it's difficult for me to say, has that directly impacted my business? I do think that it would have if I were still in the same place. But of course, I have so many other factors impacting my business with doing a large relocation move. We're now 4.5 hours away from our old city and a large, living in the Lower Mainland in the Greater Vancouver regional area, where I had a much bigger ocean to dip into for my client pool. I've completely pivoted and I'm looking at a much smaller community and a pool. Not to say that that's a bad thing. I'm excited about it and looking forward to it and connecting with people. I just feel like for me, it's already translating into deeper, closer connections with my local communities, where I didn't feel like I had that. I had my one-on-one experiences and connections with my clients that came in, but I never really felt like I was part of a local community, just because it was such a big place. I felt like a small little fish in a big pond. And now I feel like I'm better able to make a bigger impact in my actual community as a whole, rather than just one-on-one. So that's been fun. But with anything, when you move to a new, I feel like I'm starting my business all over again, and I really am. And so I'm having to kind of put on my hat and thinking, what did I do when I did start this business? And how can I utilize that again? I'm in a new community. All right, who do I want to donate my time to for events? So I'm donating my time a lot to our local Shoe Swap Pride Society, and photographing their events, and people are starting to get to know me and, learning to trust me and all of that. And it's an amazing experience, but it takes 2 to 3 years to really see any kind of profit from a new business. And I feel like I've started all over again. Pandemic and relocating both combined. So yeah, it's fun and exciting, but also overwhelming and stressful. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
what about
just
for you,
to
Kayla?
well, to build a bit on both what Aroha and Jessica said, kind of a bit more from the business end of things, because I do a lot of stuff on the back end. So at least here in Ontario, where Aroha and I live, there's a joke in BC: if you don't like the weather, wait a half an hour. Well, in Ontario, if you don't like the COVID rules, wait a half an hour, because there'll be one thing at noon and they'll change by dinner. And so there were days where we were scrambling, trying to read laws and find out rules and update things. And like, nobody really acknowledges this on the back end, just how much stuff business owners had to sort through and try to parse out and make sense of. And in the photography industry, specifically in Ontario, our premier was like, no, you can't go outside and take photos. No, you can't take pictures of people. So we had some of the longest lockdowns in Canada, definitely North America, and possibly further than that.
Mm-hmm.
So they just, you can't go outside, you can't take pictures of people, but you can go to a sports game. Nothing made sense. So every day the rules were changing, just trying to go through all of this. I mean, Aroha heard some of my commentary on the situation while we were going through it, because literally it would be one thing at noon, and then they'd make an announcement at 5 that there's another announcement tomorrow, and then everything would change. So from one day to the next, you had no idea what was even going on. So not only are you trying to stay afloat, you're trying to follow the rules, but it got to a point in Ontario for a lot of various types of businesses where it made more sense to break the rules and take a fine than to follow the rules, because it would cost you like $400 to open your doors if you got caught, but you could have made all this money if you did. So what's $400 if you're making, revenue?
Yeah.
So especially from the business end of it, there's not, and I know BC as well had a lot of, variations and changes, but it wasn't as fast as in Ontario. I don't know what you guys had locally, Terry, but
Yeah, it was
nobody
pretty
in
similar
any
to
jurisdiction. What's
Yeah.
that?
It was similar to Ontario,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, but not you. Like, there was
Right.
and none of it really made sense. And meanwhile, like, obviously governments as well weren't necessarily prepared or knew how to handle something like this either. So like they also were taking it. But I think that was
Yeah.
part of what we were having to do, like it all sums up and sounds like for everyone, is like just take things one day at a time. And so that leads to a very like scarcity way of running a business of like, all I can control is today and this or this hour, and it could change. So I'm not going to plan for too far in advance because all I know about is now. And then we did that for 2 years. Right. For most of us, it was about 2 years of up and down lockdowns. So we were just like, you know what, I'm not going to plan too far in advance. But now we're starting again, and you, like most business plans, what, have a 5-year projection plan, right? If you're doing a proper business plan. And none of us really know, at least me, like I have a really hard time seeing like 5 years. Well, it's like, well, I could plan that, but there's like this lingering fear that doesn't seem was there before the pandemic hit. And it makes me more risk averse than I was before that. Do you all
I agree
feel
with
like
that,
definitely.
absolutely. Because that is exactly the mindset that I'm currently sitting in. So you couldn't have said it any better, Terry. Like, honestly, it's that place of, I know how to run my business, and I know that I'm good at business. I've been doing it long enough and it's been successful enough. But now it's like just moving forward more than a week, or even just trying to schedule like posts out or whatever. It's like I feel like there's this hole, this like, and I'm worried about putting it all out there and for it to all come crashing down again. And I'm, God forbid that happens, but like that's the fear I have, is that I feel stuck, right? Because if I go ahead and I make all these plans and I'm on the path to what I see as success for myself, then it's almost like, oh, but wait, we've been in this place before and it all fell apart, and I don't want to have to go through that again. So I'm just going to be very cautious, to the point of not doing anything at all. Right. And that's the place that I sit in right now. So it's like I just have to put myself forward again and believe and trust in the processes that I have put in place, so that I can get to where I want to be and strive and grow and go forward. And a prime example of me doing that is, like I was saying, I have the photography studio rental business. I've had a studio sitting upstairs ready to be designed and put together for 18 months. So it's been sitting there, and I got it because I have collectively 4 or 5 studios in this building, but it's been sitting there empty and being used as a storage unit because I was too scared to invest in it again, and put it up online for people then to start booking. And it's only just this month that I've started doing the design and putting in furniture pieces and all those kinds of things, because I was so scared. Yet there was 18 months there that was just sitting empty and not earning me any revenue, but I was actually paying rent for it. So I kind of kicked myself in the ass and was like, well, that's stupid. You're paying for a space that could be earning you dollars, but at the same time, I was just too scared to do it. So, yeah,
I want to know about the toll that takes, like, on everybody. Not just on your business. Obviously, you're seeing, our business goes up and down. That's what business does. But what toll did that take on your self-esteem, or is currently taking on your self-esteem when, we were up here, we were living high, bookings coming in, and then obviously it pulled out not from our own, everyone was in the same boat. But now we're in this place where we do see other people getting bookings maybe, or being successful as far as we see. And then maybe your bookings are slow. So like what is going on in the mind for everyone? Jessica, for you, because you just moved, but you're still like the brain always compares to what it knew, right?
Yeah.
This is how our brain makes us feel things. So it's like, well, I remember that I used to have a fully booked studio, and now all of a sudden lots of people don't. So we feel disappointment. Yeah, so like walk me through kind of like how that's been feeling in terms of like how are you working through the mental health aspect of separating yourself from the business, I guess?
I have severely reduced my amount of online time. I'm not, I don't even think I've removed myself from groups, but they're definitely, not in my algorithm feed anymore because I haven't been interacting with them. I feel out of the loop, but it's actually really helped. We talk about, comparison and, well, that person's booking and this is happening or they're still shooting. I hit a wall, I hit my max load, and I was like, I can't even just indirectly see this out of my peripheral vision anymore. I had to shut everything out. Anybody that's followed me for any amount of time can see that I have not been posting regularly on my socials with my business feeds, but I'm still there, just in a different way. I may not be posting regular sessions onto my Instagram feed, for example, but if you follow my stories, I'm still posting personal stuff. I started a TikTok when everybody else was doing TikTok and it was this big thing. And I was like, oh, it's just one more thing. I don't need more, especially when I'm not feeling my business. And, I've just been posting personal stuff on it. And I guess I've been kinder to myself, right? Like I've lowered my expectations of myself, but in a positive way, that I'm not feeling forced to post business or this or certain things that I used to do. And I'm kind of pivoting and adjusting and giving myself grace and freedom to kind of see how I'm evolving, because like you said earlier, we're not the same people coming out of this pandemic as we were going into it. And instead of fighting that and living in the negativity of that, which I did for a time, I've just decided that I'm a caterpillar and I want to see what kind of butterfly I'm going to become, but I'm not going to resist it and I'm not going to force it. But like Aroha says, I can't start imagining what that butterfly is going to look like and what she's going to do and what she's going to see. I just have to embrace my cocoon right now and let tomorrow be what it will be. Without that fear, though, I may be holding back from planning and making a master plan of the next 5 years, but I'm just grabbing little bits and little puzzle pieces. I will say I had kind of an awakening, if you will, this or a kick in the butt this weekend. I really was feeling like, okay, I think I have to go beyond boudoir, go beyond intimate portraits. I need to put on more hats. Again, going back to when I first started my business and how I was doing things. And so I agreed to an opportunity to help somebody with some social media content, which was fine. But I quickly realized soon into me agreeing to this, and once it was going, that's not for me, and I don't want to do it. And I felt squidgy and icky the whole day. And I came home and I'm like, well, I know what I don't want to do. But that was a good reminder. And then I had an impromptu creative session yesterday in the studio, and I haven't really created a lot in my new space, even though I've been here just shy of it'll be a year in June. That fed my soul. I felt so good. And I felt me coming back. I felt me emerging different and new, but still me. And my confidence, if you had talked to me 3 days ago when we were doing this video 3 days ago, I'd probably still be very, but all of a sudden I'm like, no, I'm still there. I'm okay. It's going to take some time and I'm going to give myself some grace, but
so
I'm still pivoting. I just don't know exactly.
It sounds like adopting almost like that beginner's mindset again, for like exploring and trying things, to be like I remember the first time I photographed newborns, I was like, that ain't it. Like very quickly was like, nope, that's not for me. Moving over here and like really testing the waters to find out what truly does breathe life back into you, I think is a really important thing. What about for you, Kayla, as far as supporting, like obviously you're supporting businesses going through this, So not only are you like doing the logistical stuff, of course, but I'm certain there's some level of holding space for people's emotional roller coasters,
Mhm.
we'll say. So like how do you manage your own like how you're managing your own mind during this like tumultuous kind of thing, but also managing other people's?
Um, I think as all three of you probably know that that kind of challenge I enjoy. So it doesn't really fall on me as a bothersome challenge. Like if someone's, whatever's blowing up in a business today, it's like, okay, how are we going to fix
You're
this?
like,
We'll
yes.
sort it out. Yeah, I'll have you done by noon. Like, I do like that kind of thing. So I don't really find that part of it as a burden. And I mean, I've been fortunate that people I work with, I haven't found them to be burdens, but like the other side of it, like the government making you change everything or rules or,
Mm,
that part of it's been a lot more challenging. And not only for me, for everybody. And, we'd have days where things would change and it's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry you have to do this again. Even what the business didn't make the decision.
yeah.
So, you just do it. And yeah, I don't really know how to answer your question, but the
Well,
people
but
themselves haven't
so
felt
actually,
burdensome.
I think you're kind of similar to me in that you actually excel in chaos.
Yeah.
Like when like I was great during the pandemic. Like when it was at its peak, I was at my peak. I like banged out so much shit during that year. That first year, I was like, here's like things to keep you all distracted and happy, and whatever, keep things going. But now people are like, I don't know what I need. So I'm like, I don't know how to help. Like I know I want to help,
Hmm.
but I need you to tell me what you need. So are you feeling kind of that where people are like kind of now come down and there's not so much of this, so there's not a lot of fixing to happen.
Sometimes, or sometimes there's other projects on the go that need to be addressed. And it's like, okay, let's do it, and they're not
Mm,
ready.
mm.
So
Feel
it's
personally
like an
attacked.
opposite pushback situation.
Yeah, yeah, because that's what I know for me. I'm like, okay, like I need you to tell me what you
Hmm.
want or need from me so I
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
do what I do best.
Yeah.
But when I'm like, I don't do well when people are just like, eh. So
I do
that's good.
okay. I mean, I don't really, I guess I do struggle with it, but maybe not quite as much as you do.
Mm,
But like, I'll try to nudge people along, or I'll be like, fine, I'll go do this thing that when you're ready, it's there. Like
mm.
it'll be
Yeah,
there when it'll be done when you're ready.
I feel
and
So
like
that's
this is
good.
an ongoing conversation between me and Caitlin.
Me too, let's be honest.
Oh,
And
One
the
I'm
thing
real
you said, Jess, that really resonated with me when you were talking about your butterfly effect and all that, like not the butterfly effect, but the cocoon and all that kind of thing. So something came through through my socials today, and I screenshot it. You can't see it, but it says some of us isolate to recharge, and not everyone will get that. And I thought when I saw that, I was like, yes, like that's exactly how I felt during the pandemic. And I know you did too, because we've spoken a lot about it. And for me, the hardest thing was pulling back. But I knew I needed to, but it was really difficult because I'm so like community focused and I'm hugely a people person and I want to be there for everybody and I just want to bundle everybody up and give them big hugs. And I couldn't do that because of the situation that we were experiencing. So I found myself retreating really heavily, and almost wiping myself out of the community. And that was really hard for me. And I struggled with it a lot because I was like, this isn't who I am. This isn't the person I am. I know that I'm all about being around folks 24/7 and peopling and connecting people and all those things. And all of a sudden, all my connections felt like they were cut off. I felt like I was cut off. And now I'm well, not exactly now, but a couple of months ago, I felt like I don't know my place anymore. Like I
Mm.
feel like I don't have a place and I don't fit anywhere because I disappeared. And now what? Like I felt like I have to reintroduce myself into our community and start all over and building those relationships and just being there. And I think, like I was talking to Terry the other day about going to Vegas, and this year most of us, I'm pretty sure all of us choose our words at the beginning of the year about what we foresee. Mine was connection, because I knew how deep that ran inside me, and losing it during the pandemic, it felt like I was having an emotional breakdown of relationships. So yeah, going to Vegas and reconnecting and remembering that actual little trip away had nothing to do with education other than me being there to support my community, but it had everything to do with coming back and showing people I was still there. And what I learned was people were still there for me too. And that was huge, because I felt like, our minds can be a bitch, and they can tell you stuff that's not actually real. And the fact that I felt valued, even though I hadn't been seen around, and people would come up to me and say, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you again. Like, I feel like it's been forever." And I'm like, damn, yes, it has been forever. But, so to go away and come back, not knowing kind of where you sit and your place in it, but being received well with open arms, that's what I took away from that little trip. And it was so important for my mental health. Like, I can't even tell you folks how much that meant to me, because I honestly felt like I was just floundering around in the ocean without a life jacket, without, just without anything. No one was coming to rescue me, so I had to rescue myself. Basically sent myself away.
I think, to speak to your point, Aroha, another thing that we experience, and when I say we, I mean largely Canadians that are in this industry, is that our biggest border is with the United States. So a lot of our colleagues and our connections are stateside.
Mm-hmm.
And just with the way lockdowns and rules and vaccine mandates and borders closed, completely shut down. I mean, there was a long time when we couldn't enter the United States, no matter how badly we wanted to, no matter what the reason, they just wouldn't let us in. And so it was tough to see all those people south of the border, like, we're free, we can do all of the things, and getting together and doing these things, and we're literally not allowed to go. And we didn't impose that on ourselves. That was just, here's the rules, follow them or don't, I guess. So it made it even harder, because you see all of them being able to do these things that we wanted, but we can't. And then to do them within Canada had its own challenges, as we collectively face together. To put something together internally, I mean, that came with its own group of challenges. So yeah, I mean, when you look at it from that perspective and see, like, well, you get it, we don't, that's not fair, it just makes it so much harder on us, because why us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think the fear of irrelevancy is something that's very strong with not just creative. I think anybody that has social media nowadays, that is a big thing. This is why we think we need to post every day, so because people will forget about that I exist, or like all of these different things. And I think that is something that people are struggling with now. But I think it's important now for us, as like, we are supposed to be showing up as leaders for our communities, with like clients for some people or whatever. So it's like, now how can we start to be that for our clients again? Because that they are in the same mindset, just for different reasons. Their jobs are different, their needs are different because of their kids. So how can we show up being supportive for these the new communities that we have to create? Now, what do you guys think about that, as far as like, how are you changing your approach to speaking to clients or potential clients, or working with people to let them know that photography is still relevant, that it is still an important part of life to document, and so on? Anybody?
I don't know if I'm doing anything different per se, other than just I've just made my circle smaller. It's not that there's less people in it. I just haven't thrown my net quite as wide, and I'm now just kind of focusing more locally, because I realized that 90% of my friends and colleagues lived in my computer, or on the internet, and we're all over the world. And that's wonderful. And I love it. And it's so great. But COVID taught me that I didn't really have anybody local. Or I did, but I wasn't aware of it, or I didn't nurture those relationships. So I guess was all kind of part of my plan and want and hope, is that moving to a smaller community, that I could have access to that I can. And I have. I swear I've made more friends and more connections in less than a year of being here than I did in over a decade of being in my last community. And so, I mean, that's definitely different about me. I actually feel like I'm creating deeper bonds and deeper connections with people that are authentic, that don't feel forced, because I no longer feel like I'm supposed to do or I have to do. Some of that's COVID, some of that's being neurodivergent as well, and coming into my own and realizing things about myself. There's been a lot of growth going on for all of us, I know, but for me, it's just been pivoting in positive ways and not being, rather than fearing that change, embracing it and just accepting it and finding my joy and light in those things.
I think a good point on that, though, that I think a lot of creatives and photographers specifically have forgotten, because we were online for 2 years, specifically really involved in those communities, that we have forgotten to go into the community physically,
Yes.
to meet with people, to do the trade shows, to show up and support other events and other people, and actual networking, which most of us did at the when we first started our careers. That's kind of how we got to be known in our communities, was by actually doing things in person. And I know a lot of younger creatives, like people that are just becoming photographers or whatever, they grew up with the internet, so to speak, and they are missing out on the element of how to do things in person.
Yes.
Because they started during the pandemic, or they were just like jumped right into a Facebook group instead of actually just creating an in-person situation.
Exactly.
And so I think that is like one of the biggest pieces of advice that like, I know anybody that's like, oh, my bookings are slow, I'm like, well, what are you doing in person? And they're like, nothing. Okay, because there's a lot of, do you find, for you all, do you have, maybe not Jessica, because she's always a people person, but like anxiety about going to networking events, or like, do you have some sort of squidginess around going to do things in person more than you did before?
I've never been that way at all, because I've always just, wherever there's something happening, I've always wanted to participate, whether it's a community event, whether it's fundraising, whether it's open house at the studio, whatever the case may be. So that particular point has never been a difficult thing for me to do. It's actually how I started my business here in Canada. When I first arrived, I didn't know anybody. I wasn't able to actually work at that time. So for 12 months, I had to wait, and my husband had to support me, so the government said. So I had nothing else to do but get out into the community and offer my services and my skill set to people, to create connection and get to know, and for people to meet me and hear my accent and all those kind of things. So it's funny, Jess says that about community and honing in on hers over in Salmon Arm, because that's literally what I did when I came here, and that's how my business grew. And now I'm finding that it's time to do that again now. And Kayla and I have talked about, doing open houses, like for the studio spaces, for photographers to come in, do shoots, just to get familiar, say hello, doing things like slumber parties for local ladies networking groups, or come and have a movie night. We'll put the big projector up in the studio and we'll get in our pajamas and order pizza and have champers or whatever, right? Like, because that's the way that you connect outside of the online community. It's bringing these people in, letting them see you, or going out to them and showing up. basically showing up for your community in ways that we haven't been able to for the last few years. So for me, that networking piece is really exciting. The planning of it all and like the
That's where Kayla comes in.
yeah, that's where Kayla comes in. But like at the end of the day, I do like all the little finer little details and all that kind of stuff. Well, you folks know what I'm like. So, but yeah, actually the getting people to come, that worry that, oh, I'm doing all this work, will anyone actually show up?
Now, did you have that same amount of worry before the pandemic as you do now?
Not at all.
Yeah,
I
see,
was
this is-
like,
Yeah,
it's
because
awesome. Like people are gonna come, it's all gonna be great. We're gonna have a fabulous time. Now there's that, oh, I'm gonna put this on. And you know, a lot of the time this is like, I don't necessarily charge for these kind of things. It's really truly community focused. But it's just like, I'm gonna put all this money into something that may be a complete and utter flop and no one's gonna show up. And I'm like,
yeah. And it's like, and the thing was, this is what I realized during the pandemic. I was like, we never had certainty. Like in our minds, we thought we had some semblance of certainty. Like if I do this thing, this outcome will happen, but that never existed. Then the pandemic hit and essentially was like, you see, no certainty. And so all of a sudden it was like, oh, that was never there to begin with. Yikes. Like I was really just like on a wing and a prayer most of the time.
put it out there.
But I think, but so nothing has changed except for the lack of certainty. That right is what it sounds like, because it was the same event essentially you would do before, but now there's a lot more fear surrounding the execution of something
and the success of it, right? You want it to
Then
be successful.
yeah.
You put your time and money and like effort into it. And before it was like, yeah, I'm doing the thing and I'm going to have people show up. Now it's like, I'm doing the thing, but are they going to come? Like, are people ready for it? Like, you have all of this, you have all this doubt and lack of self-confidence is literally what it is, that you can do what you did before because you did it before, but now it's like, but will it really work? So, but yeah, so putting those things out into the community, it's a little scary for sure, but I think that we all need to look at it as a way to move forward past this trauma that we've all suffered and show people that we are there to help, like just help bring everybody back together in some kind of way. And if I can do that with this space, you know, just seeing people to come together is enough of a reward and a payment for me. You know, that's all I want to see.
I think it's just about changing our perspective or our meaning and definition of what is success. Is it being booked out solid? Is it making, you know, 6 figures? Or is it about community? And is it about, you know, all these other things that are just equally as important, but we weren't putting our focus on those for so long. So that's what it's been for me. It's just reevaluating what success looks like and means for me.
Yeah, and I think getting people, it's almost like people need a little like push to realize that it is okay to meet in person again, to go to these events. But that's where I think us as the like leaders in a community or like want to be leaders in business or whatever, this is where we have to put aside our discomfort or our fears of like, what if nobody shows up? Okay, like 2 people might show up, but those 2 people showed up. And if that happened 10 years ago, you would have been fucking excited about it if that happened. So like, be like, oh my God, there's 2 people here to watch a movie with me. That's amazing. And then the next time there will be 4, because now there's evidence for other people to see like, oh, we can go out in public again. Because the same fears that we're having as the creators of these networking things are the same fears that people have about attending. Right? They're like, oh, I might be the only one. Yeah, you know what? It's just easier not to, because we had 2 years of it's just better not to do it. Now we have to like wean people back into it's okay to do things in person. It's
Yep.
okay. You know, but
Absolutely.
it does start with us first having to take a chance
Yeah.
that it may not give you 10 people at an event or 20 or 50 people at an event. It may only get you 2 people. That's okay.
2 more people than you had when you started,
And
right?
Yeah.
and those 2 people are there because
they want to
they
be.
want community. Yeah. So that's why I always tell people, I'm like, you still give those 2 people 500% of yourself. Like you have to show up and give them everything as if it was a room of 500 people. Like do not like downplay that. But yeah. So that sounds good. Kayla, any last words for you from that perspective? What do you think business owners need to do to kind of get back into the swing of things, so to speak? Or how do
I
we need
think
to shift the things that we're doing or say things differently than the way they've
I
been
don't know so
said?
much about saying things differently, but I think it's like what we were just talking about, because we need to do it on one side, right? Like we need to take the first step, but we're relying on people. So if the people aren't ready, we can do a million things and it's only going to make so much difference. So you need to find that one person who is ready, get that person, and then that person's like, oh, I was ready, I went, now you're coming with me, and they'll bring the second, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then you get the people.
Momentum.
So yeah.
Amazing. Well, I think that sums up everything for new beginnings. And basically, to sum it all up, it's having a beginner's mindset again. Start trying different things and seeing where it's exciting and seeing where it's not exciting. And be okay. Because I think that happened for a lot of people too. And it's scary as hell to be like, oh God, I used to do this thing and I thought I liked it, but now that I've been away from it and I started doing it again, I don't like this is why I stopped taking clients. I was like, oh, I think I'm done here. Like, and that was scary. That was so scary to be like, uh-oh, I have to change something drastically, right? But there's like elements of our business that were like, oh, that's no longer in alignment with who I want to be. Or I don't want to strive for $1 million in a year anymore, or I do, and that scares me because I've never done that. Like everyone kind of had an awakening, and it's scary when that happens. So it's new beginnings along the way, but I think the overall thing is taking action. No matter how small the action is, either go to the networking event, create the event, start talking to real life people, not just on the line people. And yeah, just doing the things. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, 100%.
I agree.
Beautiful. Amazing. Well, that is it for today, my friends. And we will see you in the next video.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Aurelia, you have to stop the recording.